Here's some choose, as in selection of the next president. Because we're having an election, folks, and we've just had such a wonderful debate and some real easy news coverage, no big surprises or anything, no reason to be concerned, and like we're all very calm. Kind of a snooze, frankly, you know? This election, it's a total bore. Some more snooze. Like, gee, politicians are all the same, am I right? Douche and a turd and all that. Who cares? No need to go into all that political jazz. Why don't we talk about something that matters? Like how there are always too many cashews in mixed nuts. You ever notice that? All the cashews in there? They're so bland and boring. Always very cashew heavy, mixed nuts are. Someone should do something about that. Anyway, the president is a fascist. We've actually done a whole series on this topic and Trumpism, but just a recap. Fascism goes through phases from ideology to full-fledged regime, is characterized by palingenetic ultranationalism, anti-globalism, a rejection of feminism and socialism and homosexuality and Marxism and cultural Marxism, an obsession with conspiracy theories, a fear of the other, a creation of in-groups and out-groups to be rejected from the in-group, an obsession with heroism and violence and machismo and weaponry, a collection of syncretistic intellectuals complaining about liberal academia and commies, a death cult led by a charismatic male leader in the form of an ideologically inconsistent and unprincipled opportunist who plays on emotions and fears and popular trends to further a dictatorship against the left amidst popular enthusiasm due to a crisis of capitalism and ineffective liberal governance and political gridlock via uneasy alliance with conservative elites creating images and traditions and language unique to each country and leader and people. That's the basics. But that Biden guy, he is troubling. I mean, look at him. All old and confused. Not like our powerful, smart president that everyone loves, who also can't be expected to say words correctly. Thoughts and prayers for our sick president that no one likes but is also powerful and brave. Great country. It's because cashews are the second cheapest nut next to peanuts. Is why there's so many. See, a lot of mixed nuts go out of their way to boast that they're less than 50% peanuts, so they pack them with cashews instead. It's something you can learn in this 1974 issue of Consumer Reports that I use to stuff my decoy dummy for when they come for me. Be sure to check out this 1997 60 Minutes special where Andy Rooney goes through a can of mixed nuts. This country is so f***ed, man. Oh, goddamn cashews. You know, they use the peanut grift to make you feel like you're getting a diverse mix of nuts, but then it's just more of the same with those fucking cashews. This is actually pretty apt for Biden, the most progressive candidate ever, bragging about beating the socialists and who's also trying to court moderates and Republicans and saying that nothing will fundamentally change. Less than 50% centrism. Here's your fucking cashew. But let me tell you, if I had to pick between having a cashew in my mixed nuts or having a virus-infected Nazi in there, I would pick the cashew. Like, the cashew isn't great. It's dry, boring, and actually a little insidious when you really dig into it. In fact, the cashew fucking sucks. But it's not a diseased Nazi, or Nazi adjacent, or if you want to be the least alarmist, a cashew is better than a president who repeatedly avoids opportunities to condemn white supremacists while spreading misinformation about voting and calling upon his supporters to harass polling stations and actively seeks to court white Americans while discouraging black Americans to vote and tear gassed his own citizens to do a photo shoot where he awkwardly held up a Bible in an effort to pander to the most gullible and sad members of his base who have to maintain an elaborate and repeatedly disproven conspiracy theory in order to support him because he's a complete fraud who is in serious debt and therefore an extreme security risk to the country, which is probably why so many of his own staff have turned out to be grifters. Oh, and also he's probably a rapist and got COVID and then gave it to a bunch of other people. Cashew is better than that, even though the cashew voted for the Iraq War. Joe Biden is the cashew, if you were confused about the analogy. And that's why you gotta vote for... I can't yet. Here.
Please understand that the very essence of American democracy is at stake in this election. The future of the planet is at stake with a president who rejects science with regard to climate change. The racial divisions in this country will only grow wider with a president who is a racist.
Yes, Bernard, much like not him, us, made it clear that whoever is the nominee, ideally we vote for them in order to get rid of the current president, who is Donald Trump, a real, absolute disaster. And I feel like I don't need to make it more clear than that. And like, who is this video even for? Who do I need to convince? Is it even possible or helpful? Every attempt I've seen on this topic has been condescending, obnoxious, counterproductive, and I'm not gonna vote shame. I'm not gonna pretend like Joe Biden is an amazing candidate. I'm not going to pretend he's gonna do anything beyond not be Donald Trump. And I'm not gonna try to bully people into voting because politicians are owed something. In fact, it's not on voters to do this, but rather it's on the candidates to convince people to vote for them. And so maybe this is just to convince myself? I don't know. I mean, I do not like Joe Biden, and it'll never stop hurting my brain and soul to think about how, when the Democrats could have put forth anyone against a president that was elected by harnessing distrust of the previous administration, who loves to build baseless but effective conspiracies around establishment Democrats, they went ahead and picked Barack Obama's vice president, Joe Biden. After years of Trump as president, the symptom of many of society's problems, the fascist creep protecting capital and punishing their many outgroups with cruelty and ignorance, a lurch to the right, the angry boomers' desperate grasp at holding on to the world, a world that allowed for Donald Trump to be president. Surely the antidote to that is Joe Biden. I don't know, guys. It's a shame that the opposition party spent 2 years thinking about who should lead the charge against Trumpism, and they landed on the guy who was vice president during the 8 years before it took hold. Kind of a major disappointment. And it's frustrating that third parties aren't really viable as far as becoming the president, but seem to just pop up every 4 years instead of building power from the ground up. It sucks that so many people think voting won't significantly change anything, and that for many of them, they're not wrong. It sucks that the Democratic Party knows they're the most viable option and will engage in zero self-reflection if they lose. It's just all kind of a bummer. This guy, who has no exciting or unique answers in a time of police violence and extreme wealth inequality. Bland, more of the same, that got us here. Which in Biden's case was an alleged sexual assault and a lot of on-camera handsy behavior, and he sniffed that woman's hair. But also, more of the same in that he was integral to the carceral state that protesters are in the streets about. Still doesn't want to legalize marijuana. A fucking cashew. That's our man. We love him. But ultimately, any criticism here is moot. Well, it's not moot. It's important and politically healthy to tell our politicians to go f themselves and to criticize them. And criticizing Joe Biden doesn't mean you're a Trump supporter or want him to win. But it's moot in terms of the election. Because it's not a can of mixed nuts. It's a can of two nuts. A cashew and this freak. A shit sandwich that you're used to, or poison. And that's the decision. It's either Joe Biden or a man who has personally infected Americans with a deadly virus. Like a terrorist. A president terrorist. And I know that's depressing, to feel like you don't have a choice, being shamed for expressing that, being forced to vote for someone who doesn't share your values in order to defeat someone antithetical to your values. And like voting, it's not cool, it's just something you do. Granted, that's reductive because of how many people don't vote and how hard it is by design for people to vote. Voting, while just a thing you do, isn't just a 10-minute activity. It's harder than it should be. But if enough people do this thing, we can effect change, nominal change. But much like wearing masks, there are certain things we just have to do. I mean, unless you're the very smart president who doesn't need to wear a mask. And man, this is not how elections should go. Ideally, there's a candidate that actually excites you, or the stakes aren't so high that you have to care this much. Normally, the October surprise doesn't feel like you're being smashed in the face with a gourd filled with spiders. It's a real special case. And since it's just such a shotgun blast news-wise, it's easy to shut down. You know, like a shotgun blast might do. Let apathy take you. Go balls deep into the abyss, especially if this election doesn't personally affect you. It might be easy to think, well, it's just not worth getting sick over, and then spend election day getting high with your fish. And while that sounds hella sweet, and I'll probably do that in addition to voting, I need you to think of all those college fuckers walking around with COVID not wearing masks. Or I guess the president also walking around with COVID and not wearing a mask. And how selfish those people, and also that specific person who is the president, are being. Again, no shame, but just pointing out that you're not voting for yourself. You're voting for everyone. Women whose reproductive rights are being threatened as we speak. Immigrants who don't want their families purposefully ripped apart. Scientists and doctors who have to watch their work get undermined every single day by a lying buffoon. Future generations who want to perhaps still get to breathe air down the line, or at least have a little more time to not solve that problem. Voting is not a heroic act. It's not a big patriotic gesture. It's not whatever super powerful thing some celebrity is telling you. It's just a thing you do. Like going to the doctor or paying taxes. I mean, unless you're a very smart president who is very rich but also isn't, or if you don't have health care, which unfortunately Joe Biden will not be guaranteeing everybody. But anyway, it's like wearing a mask or paying taxes unless you are a very good president. We wish him very well. Thumbs up. So yeah, it's a real oopsie doodle dumb shit situation here. And there's a lot to go into in terms of the rhetoric going back and forth between moderate Democrats and progressives, and I'll get to that. But ultimately, just to make it clear at the top of this video, if we value the future of this country even a little bit, we have to vote for I'll get this. I gotta ease into it. Just a little greasing up, okay? So maybe let's talk about some good ideas that Joe has. Get ourselves excited, good and lubricated for this nut. You know, fluff ourselves up a little so we can come, I guess. Gross. Anywho, that brings us to our first segment, pumping up Joe Biden's nut. Seriously, gross. Come on, gross. I hate it. I hate this episode. No, actually, I love it. It's the best episode ever. We're here and we're excited to talk about Joe Biden, best future president ever. See, because of the way time works and how progressives have increasingly pushed Democrats further to the left on a lot of things like healthcare kind of, but specifically on the subject of climate change. So that would make, theoretically, Joe Biden the most progressive president we've ever had. Are there other politicians more progressive than him? Why, yes. Thanks for asking me from the past. And yes, I would rather have those people as president. I can't stress enough how many other people I'd rather have as president. But also, one of those people is not Donald Trump. I do not want Donald Trump as the president, and therefore would like Joe Biden to become the president. Joe Biden being the only other option. I'd be saying this right now if it was Bernie, obviously, and would in fact prefer that situation, or anyone else who won the primaries, which I guess it includes former Mayor Pete and not Bloomberg. And again, I recognize what a bummer this all is, how defeating it feels to be here, asking people to do the American thing and vote for a politician that quite frankly sucks. He sucks. But he sucks less than Trump, who sucks dangerously more in many ways. For the past several years, we here at the Shody have begged Democrats to run not on just Trump bad, but rather on good things that are possible. And they really seem to be leaning on the Trump bad part, which luckily is true. He bad. But going back to climate change, Joe has a pretty progressive plan. It's not terrible. Is it what we need to do? Nah, dog, it's really not. But is it better than Donald Trump's plan, which is no plan at all? Yes, it is. It's better than exactly no plan. And what a fucking tragedy that is. That's where we're at. And since climate change is, as one could argue, literally the biggest threat currently facing humanity, having any plan versus having no plan is kind of an automatic win, right? Like, we don't really have to look at any other issue, but we will, but this should really clinch it. If you care about making sure your great-grandchildren can breathe, or about the general survival of the human race, or at the very least you did some awesome bathroom graffiti and want to make sure people still exist to see it 100 years from now, please vote for the person who's actually receptive to climate change being real and a solvable problem. I really don't want to make this seem like a campaign ad for Joe Biden, because I don't know if you know this. I don't really care for the guy, and that's not what this show is about. But I also think 4 more or more years of Donald Trump sounds like a fever dream trapped inside another fever dream you had because your fever's so high because you're in hell. Or just on Earth in 30 years because of climate change. So yeah, Biden's been actually very smart by tying climate change to basically every issue, and how in order to address it, we would need sweeping changes. Sweeping changes it's fine to doubt he would implement, but he's not lying about climate change being made up or going on rants about his gigantic turds and how they're too hard to flush these days. He's proposing a $2 trillion plan aimed at using the economic recovery to boost renewable energy, while also introducing an Office of Environmental and Climate Justice to address how environmental policy disproportionately fucks over communities of color. He's even warming up to the Green New Deal while still distancing himself from it like a sibling locked in the basement that I'm ashamed of. That he's ashamed of.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
Would be really cool if he just supported that. It's actually very easy. Trump's going to be like, you support the Green New Deal. And you can be like, yeah, it's good. And here's why. People like the New Deal. You're framing yourself as FDR 2.0. It's odd that you won't just do that. But I guess his plan is neat too. Good plan, Joe. We are excited about it. But what's actually good here is how he came up with it, which was by reaching out to and listening to environmentalist groups that had previously criticized him. And if he actually follows through, we're hopefully going to see more of that from him. You know, maybe he'll take a back seat and let some more extremist Antifa views take control, and actually eventually welcome a plan like the dreaded and evil Green New Deal, as seen here in this scientific graph. Look. Again, it's not as good as it can be or should be, and in fact, it is grim. But in order to fully distance himself from our current president, Biden will have to be seen as very open to ideas and criticism, which means he can possibly be pushed further. Democrats actually love caving, more so to Republicans, but they do love caving on issues. And Trump is actually unbullyable. You can't bully him into doing anything. He's not even based in reality, and he's a cruel narcissist who etc. and so forth. But you know, you can bully Joe Biden, who sucks and should do better. So that's fun. That could be fun. We could have fun doing that. Though it should be clear, a lot of the people telling you to shut up now and push Biden left later, if he wins and you try to do that, they're going to tell you to calm down and pick your battles. Don't let them. More on that in a bit. But again, and this is what this election comes down to, divorced from Joe, you don't have to do this Joe Biden. Compare anyone to Donald Trump, who appears to be in the pocket of big end of the world. He's buried climate change reports, rolled back emission standards, and has dismantled too many environmental protections to count. He's constantly defunding things that are good, that help people. The biggest environmental win we've gotten from Trump is that he has finally kind of admitted that maybe, sorta, humans have something to do with climate change. A thing he knows is true, but is lying about in order to protect capital. That's how decades behind he is. In this one issue, the choice is literally between A, a person who has a plan to combat climate change, and B, a person who is actively working to speed up climate change. It's depressing how easy the choice is. Like, can you imagine if we actually had to parse through each candidate's policy to tell which one was better? Or if in the face of an overwhelmingly unlikable and incompetent, ignorant, cruel loser, we had somebody get up there and say not only are good things possible, but that he wants to do them, and that we will do them. Also, if there were more than 2 viable parties. How cool would that be? But we don't get to do that thing. Remember when the president downplayed a virus for a year and then got the virus and then didn't get tested before a debate and spread it to a bunch of other people? So hard figuring out who to vote for. The guy who didn't personally spread a virus, or the guy who did that, and also seems to actively hate environmental regulations and denies climate change except when it comes to his own businesses. It's just, man, like, hey, you want to talk about prison reform? Joe Biden actually says he wants to abolish the death penalty. No idea if he'll actually do that, but his opponent, the president, takes a slightly different approach in that he publicly praises authoritarian countries that execute people for drug offenses.
You go into China, you say, how's your drug problem? They don't even know. President Xi doesn't even know what you're talking about. We have no drug problem. They have quick trials, right? Quick trials. And I won't even tell you what the punishment is.
It's death. That's the thing he won't say that it is. So, geez, I don't know. Do we go with the guy who doesn't think we should execute people? Or the guy who really super wants to execute people for crimes that aren't even violent? It's a tough choice, folks. Should we pick the guy who's super impressed by death squads? Or, the one that isn't so much into that out loud and regularly? And I'm sure there are people responding to a lot of things I've been saying. Well, Biden doesn't like death squads in America, or drone strikes that have gone up significantly under Trump, and a bunch of other reasons why our society and both parties sucked shit before Trump. But to contrast the execute drug dealers angle, here's Biden talking about drug addiction with sissy ideas like compassion and love.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it. And I'm proud of him.
What a baby's move, appealing to the millions of Americans who have personally struggled with addiction. What a hard choice we all have. Still, it would be disingenuous to act like Joe Biden is a big prison and police reform champion, because he's super not. And in fact, a lot of policies he's now saying he wants to get rid of are ones that he helped create, and in fact, used to boast about. His campaign page talks about eliminating mandatory minimums and the crack cocaine sentencing disparity, where those caught with crack got a way longer prison time than the high-class cocaine users. And that's good of him. But it would have been better if he wasn't the one who helped create both of those things in the 80s, or things like civil asset forfeiture. And maybe he should talk openly about how that was a big mistake in his past. But again, his opponent maybe won't, but at least wants to, execute drug dealers. So, But whether or not they mean it or are going to do it, politicians read the room. Unlike Biden's solution to police violence, which is to pump $300 million into something called Community-Oriented Policing Services, a group that has been around since 1994 and has already pumped out $14 billion to the cause. That cause being community policing. Since the 90s. A system that has clearly worked out for us. But that terrible reform idea still beats Trump's plan to send in federal agents to patrol cities. And, to seemingly speak directly with fascist street gangs and encourage them to stand ready. Do we want a bad police reform plan? Or a really bad police invigoration plan? I guess the not really bad one. Good job, Joe, on being the not really bad choice. Like, what a lucky position to be in. Be not as bad as the dumbest possible version of American fascism. What a squandered opportunity. But look here, Buster. I'm not going to sit here and try to slap this limp hose any longer. Joe Biden is a cashew that made the can you're electing it to save. I've already said that. But right now, the decision is to either keep our heads above the water or drown immediately. Voting for Joe Biden is the political equivalent of stepping off of a ledge. If we manage to do it, it doesn't mean we don't have to immediately seek out help afterwards. He's part of the problem that led to Trump, but isn't literally Trump and therefore better. Not just for reducing harm to people, but for just what he does to society, to culture. It's unbearable. Why let this continue? And heck, we can maybe push Biden to be a better person in the long run. This is certainly what the more centrist Democrats keep trying to tell us, assuring progressives that if they vote for Biden, they can help push him left. And yet at the same time, go absolutely nuts when any progressive actually tries to do that. They're the people who will blame progressives if Biden loses. But if he wins, they will also blame progressives when they try to voice any criticism of him as president, and use his victory as proof that they don't need progressives. 'Twas the centrism that tamed the beast. They'll tell us to pick our battles and just be happy that the system is back to normal. They're the people who, if this election works out, will still be retweeting the Lincoln Project like they're the goddamn resistance. The people who call Trump a Nazi and then send their well wishes when he gets sick. The people who stand Pelosi and other establishment Democrats who've done such a good job at being incredibly ineffective in the last 4 years. It's the people who see Biden getting elected as the war being over, who see it as an opportunity to go back to brunch, when the war is really just beginning. And brunch is canceled. The next Trump that comes around won't be as obvious about it next time. Or, Tucker Carlson will just say we have to secure a future for white children and become president for life. I don't know. And while these people are very frustrating, it's also frustrating to see the idea that not voting for Biden will teach the first group a lesson. That Biden failing will signal that the Democrats need to stop courting the center and go left. And I can assure those people that this will never happen. Why do I know that? Because they just nominated Joe Cashew Biden after losing the election to Donald Trump. Because after putting up an establishment center-courting Democrat against a man who so clearly shouldn't have been president, they lost. And then didn't learn the lesson from that. The only thing Democrats love doing more than caving in is not learning lessons. And so if you think that not electing Biden will somehow get that lesson across this time, you're going to be very angry 4 years from now when we're all having this exact same conversation about Democratic candidate former Mayor Pete, or there won't be an election again. But again, no blame, no shame. It all just sucks. It sucks that this election isn't about getting what we want. It's about swerving out of a ditch. These are not inspiring times. And the unity behind Biden is huge for that reason. He has the support of over 200 retired generals, as well as many of the troops. He has the apparently unprecedented support of Scientific American, whatever that gets you. He's got support from Colin Powell and an army of other Republicans. The olds like him. Over 170 environmental leaders are picking him over the Green Party this year. He even has the support of the People's Champion, leader of the Champion Party. And as frustrating as it is to see the nominally left party court Republicans and aspire to the way things were before Trump, this unity isn't really because of who Joe Biden is, but rather who Joe Biden isn't. He's not a particularly charismatic guy. He doesn't have exciting ideas, nor does he feel fit to lead us into any kind of meaningful progress. He's just a life raft, not even a well-built one. But you still gotta get on it, even if it doesn't seem that buoyant and kind of smells funny. But if we do this, perhaps we can then steer ourselves to a place where we never have to do something like this again. Where the next election isn't just about compromise and settling. Where Trump, our virus president, who we wish only the best for, is just a memory. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be really nice not to think about Donald Trump anymore, while still learning from it and fixing the problems that got us to him? We all got to see how fascism can start to take hold, but we didn't let it this time. It's a simple lesson to learn, and it's a lesson we taught after World War II. Though in later and more recent years, fascism to the average American is the flags and the marches and the tanks and the uniforms and the camps. It's the end of it. There aren't a lot of warnings about the beginning. But again, it's a simple and old lesson.
I happen to know the facts. Now, friends, I'm just an average American. But I'm an American, and some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
And that guy, the example of a fascist, became the president. Instead of learning about the rise of fascism in school, we got to experience it for 4 years. A nationwide fascist movement coalesced behind this guy, and he became the president. And the opposition to that movement is, not great. And hearing the people in power just say, vote, is super disheartening. Because, what if they do vote, and Trump still wins? What will the opposition party suggest then? They're certainly helping add to the kindling of the just let it burn fire. But even if you embrace the doomerism, the nihilistic glow of the utter nonsense of it all as things crumble no matter who's president, even if that, it would be nice to still make that a little better for everybody, right? Even if it's happening, like, help each other while the world burns. I don't know. I don't even know if this is helpful or convincing anybody. Like I said, every attempt I've seen to be like, vote and vote for the not fascist, it just seemed obnoxious or condescending or like not honest about Biden or about the situation. Because it sucks. We should be able to say that it sucks and hold the nominally left party to not the lowest bar ever. Criticism is healthy. F*** Joe Biden. But f*** Donald Trump way more. And just do me a favor and do the thing, please. Vote for... Vote for Joe Biden, please. I f***ing guess. But don't let people forget that going back to normal is not good. Normal got us Trump. And more people are saying this. They're feeling it. The last 4 years have been radicalizing for a lot of people. And the important thing about the election is that if Joe Biden wins, we don't lose that. We keep reminding people of it. And Joe, who is watching this, thank you very much, Joe. Joe, good fucking luck, you piece of shit. Don't f*** this up, and if you win, don't f*** it up even more. If you're telling people that things change when people vote, make sure things change, or you're going to create yet another generation of voters completely disillusioned by the hope and change being sold to them. And if you are voting for Joe Biden, even though you hate him, just remember, even if he wins, brunch is still canceled. Joe Biden! Hey everybody, thanks for watching the video that everybody liked. Like and subscribe to the channel. We've got a patreon.com/somemorenews. We've got a podcast called Even More News. Vote by mail or vote in person or vote safely or vote for whoever you want. I don't know, but also make sure it's Joe Biden. Bye! Then, I don't know.